And guess what? I mean, of all these 50% of the populations are kids. Of 100% of the children, only 70% can go to school or to these small schools in the camps because there are no rules. Like for us when we were kids, our parents would just push us to schools. The teachers would keep an eye on you whether you're in the class. But for this kind of system, I mean, they live in their, I would say, survival scale. That means they make their own rules. They have some older people who would play senior roles, like being a chairman of the schools, being...
Oh, the refugees themselves.
Yeah, they manage themselves.
Okay.
They build some sort of a structure of living to trying to maintain their tradition, their culture, the way they eat, the way they speak, the way they pray. They have the church and the mosque at the same time. So although some of them have different religions, but they can coexist in the camp.
I see. So the living condition is not that great, and with schools and houses and all existing in these camps, is it true that some of the refugees do not get to go out, meaning they are not relocated or resettled elsewhere, but stay in the camp for the rest of their lives?
Right. As I said, there are totally 9 camps in Thailand. These camps, from the very first camp to the very last camp, it has been here since 25 to 30 years ago. Our Thai government decided to help the neighbors when you have to understand the war in Burma has happened for
ages,
as long as we remember. So these camps exist for 25 to 30 years. So some of the people managed to register with the UNHCR for the relocation program. So some can manage to relocate, some cannot. So the ones who cannot relocate, they would remain in the camps and waiting for Burma to accept them back. So that means everybody wants to go home. Most people want to go home. Very little that would say, you know what, I would be ready to expose to the new environment, exposed to the Canadian or the American way of living by registering with the UNHCR and say that may I be relocated to United States. So it's not everybody would want that, because everybody has sense of belongings. They want to go back to their homes. Even
though they don't know what they'll be finding once they return home.
Right. It has to be peace. The peace they've been waiting all their lives.
I see. Now, as for this registration program that you mentioned, that some refugees only had the opportunity to register with agencies like UNHCR. I mean, what about the others? I mean, why didn't the other people get a chance, equal chance to register? I mean, does the slot open a particular time of year, or is it a temporary thing?
You're right. Actually, UNHCR is the agency of the UN, United Nations. So it is the only agency that doing this type of registration. So whether or not anybody who is a refugee aid NGOs, whether it's USCRI, TCR, TBBC, or any other NGOs helping the refugees, everybody has to comply under the UNHCR's rules. So UNHCR's rules. So they do not open registration rounds every year. Sometimes it skips for 3 to 5 years. So these refugees have to wait until their chance to go in and register.
I see. And with the number of refugees that you mentioned earlier, about 140 to 160,000,
right,
it makes it a lot difficult and challenging for agencies like Thailand Committee for Refugees or UNHCR to be able to help everybody.
Definitely. It has been very difficult, but thanks to many dedicated foreign NGOs that send their people here. I believe there are up to 100 NGOs, foreign NGOs, that had provided food, money, and all kinds of aids. Even I heard that there are some volunteers from France, from Germany. They send their teachers to come and provide education for the people living in the camps.
Why would they need money if they're in the camps?
Because they, you know, the food, I believe that in the last show, I kind of showed you the items, restricted 12 items of food that UNHCR provided.
That you can survive on, but it's not items. Decent food, but you eat to live.
It's not chicken and pork or steaks. So now when some of their relatives manage to relocate, they can, you know, if they get a job as a waiter or construction worker, they made some money and they send some cash to their people in the camps. So they manage to get by with special kind of food.
I see. Now, with the amount of people left in the camps, it has raised a concern to a term called warehousing. Human warehousing is something which the Goodwill Ambassador of UNHCR, Angelina Jolie, also reflected her worries about this. So could you explain to us human warehousing? What is it?
The term warehousing is actually I would say defined to compare to human as we are stocking goods or merchandise,
products in a warehouse,
or products in a storage, in a kept storage. And these people, like I said, especially the camps in Thailand, they've been here forever, and we're not doing anything about it. We just, as long as there are foreign NGOs giving some cash or monies or aids, any kinds of aids, we just keep them there. So that nobody decided to, hey, you know, something is wrong here. How can these people live here for 30 years? So this is the definition of the serious human warehousing. So we have to stop. So that's why if you go into USCRI website in the United States, there is a term that we always promote, which is stop warehousing, stop human warehousing. Because human nature, we love freedom, we're the creature of freedom. We want to be able to get mobilized anywhere we want. That's why we have planes, trains and everything, but these people are restricted.
They're stuck there.
They're stuck there.
So the campaigns run by USCRI in providing greater movement for refugees, at least here in Asia, in ASEAN, has these campaigns been successful?
Well, I believe that right now people like you and me and some of the people here in the studio just getting to understand the term warehousing, just getting to understand the difference between refugees and illegal immigrants. So we have to work. It's a long way, but there is a little light at the end of the tunnel.
I see, and that of course is somebody like you devoting your time to help the refugees. We'll now take a short break. Stay with us right here on ASEAN Talks. Coming up next, we'll talk about the caravan which Ajahn Ann and her friends visited a camp in Tak province, and also updating you on the situation of a lot of Burmese refugees pouring into Thailand as a result of the fighting which ensued after the general elections took place in Burma.